Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about the Biolab leakage and masking for the Miasma and the fallout of Helene and the land of masses yearning to breathe free as it goes up in smoke. Um, so yes, if you have not heard about it, there has been a large spill, a large leak of very toxic substances that have gone into the air at this huge fire. Um, if you are not keeping track of this stuff outside of mainstream media, but on more democratized media, let's say, you might not have heard about this at all. It seems like they're not even talking about it in a lot of places. If they mention it, it is none of the actual dangers and reality of the situation is being mentioned at all. It is, it's being catastrophically, criminally mismanaged, as usual. And so I thought it would be a good time to talk about this particular topic as it relates to this particular event as a microcosm, as this event as a symbol, also a literal tragedy, but also like a symbol of the greater tragedy of what is happening in let's just say the U.S., the country that this is happening in. So yeah, what was that? The fire itself is, I believe, it's still going, if I'm not mistaken. I've watched a whole bunch of separate reports from a variety of sources. Just trying to get a good source is difficult nowadays, I know. So I figure I'll try to just kind of consolidate and give a kind of summary of a non-disinformation based summary on what I kind of gather. Obviously, I'm not in Atlanta. I'm in Hawaii myself. However, many of the things that have occurred are like the same rodeo, so to speak. This is not the same. This is not my first rodeo in that sense. Having gone through several natural and unnatural disasters, including in Hawaii, we've had the Lahaina fires, obviously. That involved, natural. It actually also involved a hurricane or large storm, right? That caused another knock-on impact, right? The natural, as I was speaking about last week, right? The natural world does have volcanic eruptions, large storms, cyclones, unusual weather patterns that cause unprecedented damage, right? That's what the last week's video was about. Full spectrum attrition. How can the U.S. West recover from its failures? And how climate, economic inequality, industry, science, and tech innovation, with the R word, the rhymes and ism, imperialism, and AI, and other simultaneous historical problems and ongoing catastrophes happening. But these natural disasters like hurricanes, this is obviously the Biolab leak of toxic waste into the air is a knock-on domino impact. It's one of those domino impacts, right? That is it is in part human caused, because if there had been, right, like I talked about PG&E, the electrical blackouts, people dying in the Texas mass super cooled air ice storm that happened right several years ago, right? People dying, people being charged $16,000, infrastructure being destroyed, and so damage to property and life. That could have been avoided. The unprecedented ice storm in Texas was unprecedented, but and a natural caused event, but the management of the electrical grid under corporate greed, etc., uncontrolled profit seeking, it allowed the actual destruction to be far, far, far greater. Right, the loss of life, suffering, obviously the mass wealth siphoning and land stealing in a lot of these cases, which is always part of it. It's a land grab in these disasters. There's a whole book, Disaster Capitalism, Shock Doctrine, by Naomi Klein. It was describing some of these human phenomenon that go along with the natural phenomenon of the environmental shock, right? But then there's the human element to that, right? So anyways, so the Helene that happened last week resulted, or I shouldn't say resulted, like it is highly possible, that this is a U.S. intentional, some entities in the United States intentional biolab a disaster. Now this is not, I mean, I use that term biolab leakage because of its resonance, right? Because the United States, right, has accused countries. It used that term, right? Why the Wuhan lab leak theory is so? Just remember this whole thing. Where did this COVID virus come from? Remember that? And so yeah, so the reason why I chose the title is because the United States, as a massive imperial country that is currently undergoing serious structural dislocation, as it is basically essentially going up in smoke. The United States accused other countries of having biolab leaks that caused aerosolized, extremely damaging pathogens, or extremely damaging aerosolized material to spread around the world, right? Harming and killing and disrupting the lives of billions of people, right? So the United States has had a place called Biolab leak chlorine gas, right? Extreme amounts of chlorine gas, which is, right, like that Panini virus, right? It is extremely dangerous. Now, chlorine gas is not a mass infectious virus. It is not made of RNA molecules, and you can't spread chlorine from one person to another indefinitely across the globe. But it is it's formaldehyde, it's chlorine gas. These are extremely toxic, and they can and will cause short-term, mid-term, and long-term damage, including nosebleeds, cancers, and all kinds of other, damage to your lungs, right? It's similar to COVID in that chlorine gas will cause damage to your lungs. And in the short term, you can at exposure, I believe in 1,000 parts per million, or approximately 1/1000th. If 1/1000th of the air you are currently breathing is made up of chlorine gas, you will die in about 3 minutes. So now, obviously, that's very high. 1,000 ppm is quite high, but there are areas where it has reached 300. I mean, some. Let me get that exact number here. Yes. So just to give you an idea, this is the Biolab chemical haze that made it to Gwinnett. It has spread all across the southeast United States, Alabama, Florida. This cloud is moving. Like a miasma is a word. In case you don't know what that is, I use these fancy words because I write science fiction for a living, and I have to use fancy words that I made up. And this one I didn't make up. It's not a neologism, which is another word that means new words. Miasma is a highly unpleasant, unhealthy smell or vapor. Miasma, stale alcohol, hung around him like a marsh gas. Miasma theory was an abandoned medical theory. It was abandoned because there is an anti-scientific part of the world. It's the opposite of the East, and they shouldn't have abandoned the idea of filtering and cleaning the air. That was actually a mistake. But miasma theory was an abandoned medical theory that held that diseases such as cholera, chlamydia, black death were caused by miasma, a noxious form of bad air, also known as night air. The theory held that epidemics are caused by miasma emanating from rotten organic matter, though miasma theory is typically associated with the spread of contagious diseases. Some academics in the early 19th century suggested the theory extended to other conditions such as one could become obese by inhaling the odor of food. Now, not sure about that one, but it is true that, but part of it came from because there were, in areas where many sick people were gathered, people would tend to get sick, even if they didn't touch. Like in a hospital where there are many people with tuberculosis, it was, not the earlier ones, they were not quite right, but in the 1800s, there were some people who used that word to describe the air in hospitals where there was a large amount of sick people. And if you had tuberculosis and other airborne illnesses, if someone breathed the air in the hospital, right, like it was part of what encouraged here, right, the miasma theory was the theory was eventually abandoned by scientists and physicians after 1880, replaced by the germ theory of disease. Specific germs, not miasma, cause specific diseases. However, cultural beliefs about getting rid of odor made cleanup a waste of high priority for cities. It also encouraged the construction of well-ventilated hospitals, schools, and other buildings. This has failed, obviously. You might have noticed that focusing on proper ventilation, HEPA filtration, cleaning the air of aerosolized, highly dangerous pathogens, and other chemicals, right? I mean, so a wildfire ash. I mean, you have just various toxins in the air, polluted cities. But then you also have BSL level 3 pathogens like COVID, right? And you have a population that has tens to dozens or hundreds of times the rates of RSV, flu recurrence, colds. You have H5N1 arriving soon, right? It should be, this idea of the air. It's not that the air is bad, and that's you cannot catch overweightness by breathing in the smell of French fries. But the concept of indoor air, especially indoor air, when we talk about human to human toxins, right? The bad air. When you have sick people in a hospital that are breathing, you're going to increase. They noticed, nurses and some doctors noticed that people would tend to get sick in the 1800s despite being in separate rooms. So if one person had measles in one room, or they had some airborne contagious disease in one room, or they didn't even know it was airborne at that time, but they noticed that people that were separated, right, even though they were separated, like the two patients did not come into contact, but they were still other patients were still getting sick, other staff were getting sick, and so they said we need to ventilate these hospitals properly, right? That was actual science, that was actual observation and actual based upon results, and some people did tests on this, right? And they found that hospitals that were well ventilated, right, where the air was cycled out frequently, right, the windows were open, that they had less total people diseased, catching illnesses, and dying because of that, right? And that theory, but that was thrown away in the end of the 1800s. Why was that thrown away? because it suggested that indoor groups of people crowded together, unmasked, right, unventilated, sharing each other's air, was part of what caused the mass spread of illnesses like tuberculosis, like colds and flus, and also Spanish flu, and that was bad for profit, as it is today, right? So this is an old failure, or this is an old prioritization in a plutocratic, mass disinformation based place, such as the United States and the collective Western world, at minimum, and some other places as well. But certainly in London and New York, the idea that you needed to clean the air, it was deemed expensive. The knock-on impact of accepting that air could be filled, right, that you were speaking and breathing in, that the air could be filled with toxins, it led to extremely difficult and problematic conclusions. People it's just thinking that, right? Just thinking that, right? The air could be of concern would mean that people might not crowd into stores, into shops, into large, hyper-condensed, hyper-populated cities at the same rates as they used to. This was bad for business. This was bad for profit. I mean, this would disrupt all of society, right? Because if this is why people still, many people, they have post-traumatic 2020s disorder. They're like, you can't keep traumatizing us. People will threaten. There are mask bans going all around the United States right now, and certainly the collective West. There's just another one raised in another state. I gotta go look up which exactly it was. But this is because the justification, there are bogus ones, but one of the ones that is used, there's many bogus ones, is that it's traumatizing, it's re-traumatizing people who are trying to return to normal, right? And so when someone is masked, if someone is wearing an N95 in other people's presence, in a store, in a gym, in a restaurant, on a bus, on public transport, that is traumatizing to the rest of the citizens that are trying to live as though there are no viruses in the air, right? So that is a whole other social psychological phenomenon, and then it's also an economic phenomenon that is obviously it was in 1800s by the government and the corporations, being intentionally, which are owned and operated by the rich for profit, etc. They were being intentionally obfuscated. The science was intentionally being obfuscated, downplayed, simply not shared. And the germ theory is not false, obviously, because but the focus became on washing hands, which is not. It is important to wash hands as well. Many people died because doctors failed to wash hands for centuries. It's a study of iatrogenics, which is that most of certainly the Western world, which had never adopted. They were still doing bloodletting and using leeches for millennia, and also not washing hands when going from a dead body, covered with all kind of horrible bacteria, to operating on a patient, that was injured in a car crash or in a train crash, right? And that was spreading diseases through infectious tissue, blood, etc. on hands and on other implements, right? But then in the end of the 1800s, it was like, but it's not just the physical blood, mucus, snot, saliva, organic matter, right? That this, all the droplets that are on the doorknobs, that are on your gloves, that can get the what do you call that? Liquids and fluids, physical solid fluids, solid or liquid material that can cause infection. There's also the air itself, right? And this is the one where it was like, because washing hands, it could be cumbersome. A lot of doctors didn't want to do it. Some people still don't want to do it. Some people believe it's germophobia. But the air, right? The theory of there being many I would say exactly how much of the diseases. The reality is diseases all variously, most of them, viruses certainly, to some extent spread via aerosol. It's really a matter of the percentage and the efficacy, right? Some viruses spread more efficiently through the blood. Some viruses spread more efficiently through, like droplets of saliva when two people are speaking to each other, and little bits, right? Little drops are, because as you're talking, there's a cloud of droplets, larger and smaller, and then aerosol, right? Like a mist that's coming out of your mouth at all times. So if two people are talking to each other, droplets are shooting from one person's mouth to the other. You just don't really think about it that much, right? When you're at a convention, or you're at when you're having a discussion in a group, everyone is basically snogging each other. Everyone is like everything short of French kissing each other. Fluid is going from your mouth into their mouth. Some amount, not every droplet of fluid that you're spraying into each other's mouth. Another example is in a bathroom. Every time you flush a toilet, millions of feces and urine filled droplets shoot into the air. There's like a giant tornado of poop in the air when you flush a toilet. So if you go to a public restroom, by the way, the COVID lasts 85 plus days or longer in the intestinal tract in poop. So it's actually more likely that you will spread the COVID through poop exchange. The probability is actually higher than through liquid exchange, because it actually lasts for a shorter period of time in the respiratory tract, in the nasal passages, in the mucous membranes, and in your saliva. But it lasts far longer in your intestinal tract. And every time you flush a toilet, millions. So anyway, long story short, right? So if the poop infected with viruses shoots into the air, and then you go into a bathroom stall and you breathe that, you're breathing poop molecules. I mean, just that is bad enough, but then you're also breathing poop molecules plus the infected with COVID into your nose. Now, you're not inhaling entire, chopped logs. You're not like breathing in. You're not snorting scat, like some strange 1990s, dark web German video. But you are, in fact, that's part of what's happening, right? That's why you should be masking in bathrooms, especially public bathrooms. Like in your household, that's one thing. But in a public bathroom, you don't know what you're being exposed to. That stuff will linger in the air for hours. But anyways, so let's move back though. So I spent a lot of time on that. So when I talk about, I went off on a little bit of a side, I know, but this is kind of just to describe what we're talking about why I use the term, right? Masking for the miasma, because this is talking about the bad air, right? It kind of groups together, biological hazards and chemical hazards, right? Which are both bad things for you that are in the air or can be in the air. And also, right, so that's why I say, and also, if you don't take anything else, just remember masking is important, because, also important, I mentioned the term N95, to protect yourself from chlorine and other similar chemicals, right? You need something strong. You need something that is capable of filtering out that specifically, right? Which is N95 will not do that, unfortunately. That's for viruses and bacteria. But you need I'll have more specific material of this later on. But you need a minimum like a P100 or a respirator that's capable of filtering acid, gas. And you might want to check specifically for things like chlorine. It depends on what exactly is in the air, right? But a lot of the chemical pollutants, they are finer. Or they are not filtered out by masks that are designed primarily for the droplets and aerosols that carry the viruses and bacteria, right? So if you're in a room, if you're in a crowded office building, and you want to protect yourself from RSV and flu and other viruses and stuff like that people might be spreading there, then a N95, KN95, N94, C95. There's many of these masks. Those would be appropriate. But if you have chlorine, if there's chlorine in the air, which it is in the air, all over the East Coast of the United States, you need something more serious than that. That's the main takeaway for now. I'm going to try to move on, and I'll come back to what specifically you need later. Okay. This is formaldehyde smoke, among other things, a resident. Okay, let's watch this one more time. Okay, let's see. So this is Biolab chemical fire haze that is made up to Gwinnett. You can see it's just if you didn't, it might be fog. You look at it, maybe that's just it's just smoke. I mean, smoke itself, right? When a wildfire burns, right, it releases carcinogens, it releases cyanide. A wildfire air can contain cyanide. It can contain all kind of very dangerous substances. So you don't want to be out, even if it's just smoke. You don't want to be out there breathing it for undue amounts of time. But this is a chemical haze. This is even worse than that. For formaldehyde smoke. So if you don't know what formaldehyde is, it is a colorless, strong-smelling, flammable chemical produced industrially and used in building materials such as particle board, plywood, and other pressed wood products. A higher levels of formaldehyde exposure can cause skin rashes, shortness of breath, wheezing, and changes in lung function. You have asthma or breathing problems, you may be more sensitive to the effects of it. So it's a very dangerous substance. You don't want to be around that. A resident of Atlanta measured formaldehyde at 150 parts per million. 0.5 ppm is considered the limit for safe exposure. So again, like any substance, I was trying to find this in the beginning. There is no good, like if you look up, if you just look it up on the news, they're not saying anything at all. Like in the mainstream, certainly when it first came out. What we know, to deploy special response team. Shelter in place continues. Residents may soon smell chlorine. But they're not saying they're not really saying the dangers. I mean, people should be evacuated from the entire region. People should be allowed to stay home because this cloud can kill you or shorten your life by decades potentially. Like some people, I saw some people literally dying. Like they're bleeding out their parents and children are bleeding out their nose from the because chlorine gas, it causes the formation of like hydrochloric acid. It can, like I said, it can at a high enough concentration, which some places are getting close to that, right? At 1,000 ppm, right? Let me just check that again. Chlorine gas, right? It at 430 in 30 minutes. Right, 430 parts per million. Some areas got up to 300 parts per million. Now, some people say, well, that's not the average. That was just one test, and maybe it spiked to 300, then it dropped back down to 150. If the parts per million of chlorine gas is 150 in the air, right? At 15 parts per million, right? At 1 to 3. Your eye and oral mucous membranes will become irritated, right? And that's enough to already cause, like serious quality of life loss. Just 1 to 3 parts per million. At 15, you have pulmonary symptoms, right? At 430 parts per million, you could be dead in 30 minutes, right? And so at 1,000, you die in 3 minutes, right? Chlorine gas was a chemical weapon used to unalive mass numbers of people in World War One. It is a chemical weapon. It is under the United Nations chemical weapons rules. It is deemed a chemical weapon, right? It is so. It is an extremely dangerous substance. It's not. There's no laughing matter, right? People are there are going to be millions of shortened lives, mass disablement, permanent lung, heart, brain, total body damage from this exposure. Oh, there's been a week of this, right? This event happened. The Biolab fire happened, right? The Biolab fire started, right, almost a week ago. Already millions of people, essentially, I mean, millions of people maybe not exposed at the highest level, but at least thousands at extremely high levels. And based upon where the cloud is, it's been millions and millions, tens of millions probably, of people that have been exposed to chlorine gas all across the east of the United States, southeast United States. Yeah. So I want to wake up to today's Thursday. I'm trying to find the original date of when this occurred. The Poison Center said they had more than double the cost coming in each day about the plume. They've doubled their staff. I'm working from home next 2 days. That is a good thing. But with me having asthma the way I do, I am really concerned about that because it can. Another important thing is that, sheltering in place is a good idea. Being outside, you could be more exposed, but the reality is the air inside your household, the air in your household comes from air outside your household, right? You can't stop, right? I mean, it's like, in order to get oxygen in your household, you need oxygen produced by the trees that inhale human generated and animal generated carbon dioxide and exhale that air, right? So you can't, this is like, for example, if a car drives by that has a really bad clutch, like a burning clutch, and you have this sick smell in the air, or you have like plumes of black smoke coming out of a car on the highway, right? And you're like, oh my God, that smells bad. And you roll the window up, right? Then like the smoke, maybe just the smoke from that car will not toxify the inside of you'll have less total smoke inside your car for that moment, right? But over time, all the air in that car comes from all the air outside of the car. The air you can't over a long period of time you cannot control, and the smoke is just sitting in that air, right? This chlorine gas is in that air. It has been in the air for days and days. You cannot, at a high enough concentration, you're not gonna be able to control. Right? So just sheltering in place is not a solution, right? Sheltering in place is barely a Band-Aid on this, right? Like they're saying basically don't go outside, and there's so many bogus claims. I'm going to get too upset if I think about it too much, so I better stop. But long story short is all of the US and Western corporate media is completely lying about this. They're telling either lies, half truths, covering it up, not telling you what you need to know. It's extremely dangerous. So that's why I think it was a good idea to cover this today. Let's finish up on the chlorine gas. So at 430 ppm in 30 minutes, you can die. Now, even if you don't die, right, you can have chronic, permanent, long-term damage at much lower chlorine gas concentrations than that. It is a pulmonary irritant. It has intermediate water solubility with the capability of causing acute damage to the upper and lower respiratory tract. Chlorine gas has many industrial uses, but it was also once used, as I said, as a chemical weapon in World War I. Today, most incidents of chlorine exposure are through accidental industrial or household exposures. As for industrial exposures, there are several instances of train accidents carrying liquid chlorine that cause the release of chlorine gas to the surrounding environment. At home, a mixture of chlorine bleach with other household products that contain acid or ammonia is a common source of exposure. So you can be exposed to some of it, but the concentration that you will be exposed, like if somebody is cleaning the sink in the bathroom using bleach, chlorine bleach, other household products. I mean, they sell these in the store. You'll be exposed to some, and you can smell some of that in the air. But the amount that you're going to be exposed to is fairly low. I mean, it's certainly not enough for you to suddenly have, serious pulmonary symptoms, right? That's a much higher concentration that is needed for that. Because the strong odor, chlorine gas can be detected easily. Symptoms of chlorine gas exposure include burning of the conjunctiva, throat, and bronchial tree. Higher concentrations can produce a bronchospasm, lower pulmonary injury, and delayed pulmonary edema. Yeah, so you can have difficulty breathing. Long-term impact of chlorine exposure includes development of chronic lung problems, bronchitis, asthma, and some cancers. Even a single short exposure to high concentration of chlorine can cause immediate lung damage, which can be irreparable. So you have to be careful, even if you, for a brief period, because there's, if you're briefly exposed to 1,000 ppm, even for like 30 seconds, 15 seconds of chlorine gas, you could permanently just damage your lungs, right? This is all, again, similar to COVID there as well, right? Long-term effects, chronic lung damage. Let's just spot the signs. Anyway, we don't need to know that. But it's just to kind of reiterate that it's like a very dangerous substance in the air. Okay. Stay inside, turn your AC off. The reason why you want to turn the AC off is because the AC may bring air from outside the house in. Close windows, wait until it is safe. So this is the problem, right? Wait until it is safe, but the thing is, when will that be? When will it be safe, right? It is unknown when it will be safe, right? The smoke, so the fire was extinguished, but the smoke continues to rise from the chemical reactions within the damaged Biolab facility. And this is let's see, I'm just gonna get something like from right now. Yeah, so even at this moment, the Conyers Biolab smoke plume due to pool chemicals, right, is still rising. So there is no date. This is especially if you're in the East Coast, but anywhere in the U.S., but really anywhere, certainly anywhere in the West. I would recommend, if nothing else, try to get your hands on the appropriate masks, right? You need chemical pollutant filtering masks. Okay, so like, I think P100. I mean, there's a lot of them. You have to look what you can get. But you need a mask equipped with a acid gas cartridge. Well, let's not use AI as much as possible. That's another toxic digital brain pollutant and civilizational knowledge pollutant, but and also climate pollutant because of its using 9 to 20 times the electricity as non-AI generated search. 3M respirator cartridge 602. So you need a kind of specific kind of mask. You can't just have any, like you can't just use the N95 3-layer mask. You can't use the N94. You can't use the mask designed for viruses and bacterial filtration. That's not strong enough. It's not capable of filtering out chlorine gas. Just trying to get a picture of this. Yeah, so the respirator mask paint, respirator with 6001 filters for chemical spray paint, epoxy resin sanding. The kind of masks that are used for like industrial production. For the kind that painters use, resin, the kind of masks that not quite a hazmat suit, but you want something that is gonna filter out chemical chemical substances in the air, not just bacteria and viruses. And also you need eye protection, so like some kind of a full face mask, goggles. You can have goggles plus the respirator. But because and in fact, like if the chlorine gas gets a high enough concentration, you might have to protect your entire body, because any exposed skin could potentially be harmed. That's kind of, you basically would need an entire hazmat suit. You would need like try not to have any exposed parts of your body covered. In the event that you have a cloud passing through your area, right? If you smell the smell, certainly if it smells like pool cleaner, if it smells like chlorine in the air, you will want to be having as much protection as possible that is capable, because the United States is not going to come for you. It's not going to help you. It's not there for you. It is there for the 1,000 to 10,000 richest, most powerful people in the world. It is there for the corporations. It is there for the military-industrial complex. It is there for the big techs. It is there. It is. It's Neofeud. As that's why I made the game Neofeud. Right. You are the people in the place, in the satirical science fictional homage to all the dystopias. But the Neofeud is a artistic rendering of the actual United States and the collective West, which is a place that is built for the richest and most powerful, and everyone else below in this wasteland, you get to fend for yourself. And they call them the groundlings or the slum sprawl. And it's not quite that bad, but this is the way the West is designed. The information that you get, the air that you breathe. In fact, the original Neofeud drawings, I was showing this last time, but I'll show you just a slight extra aside to some Neofeud memory lane historiography. The original Neofeud actually was designed so that miasma, or bad air, right? Virus, bacteria, and chemical and wildfire-filled air was plaguing the terrestrial surface. And the neo-feudal rulers were those who existed high above them, right? Like this is actually the first. This was the first Neofeud design. So everyone below a certain level was inhaling chlorine gas, incinerated Appalachian forest, COVID, RSV, super monkeypox, and hybridized Fort Detrick weaponized H5N1 crossed with COVID-19, right? And that's what everyone of the lower areas of Earth was breathing in the original Neofeud. And then the ruling class was above that, flying above this ocean of toxic, noxious smoke to each other's palaces with like some kind of science fictional upper atmosphere sanitizer. Imagine like the Taylor Swift's and Adele's $450,000 concert stage cleaning system, so that the air that they're breathing, right, has no viruses in it. This is for real. At the concert, there's an advanced system that basically has like industrial fans, ultraviolet light, invisible virus and pathogen incinerators, basically, that you can't see, right? That's actually killing the majority of all your aerosolized droplets, so that when Taylor Swift, Sophia Carpenter, whatever her name is, and Adele are singing on stage, right? Red Hot Chili Peppers, I don't know if they have one. A lot of musicians do, though, because the people who own them want to keep making millions of dollars from their overpriced tickets on Ticketmaster. And so does Ticketmaster. They don't want them dying too fast. So they keep their celebrities invisibly protected from COVID, viruses, etc. Right? Many have already fallen. Like Paul Simon, right? How many musicians have collapsed and they will never play again, or severely sickened? Lots of bands are gone now, right? And but imagine that. The air cleaner, but only for the millionaire billionaire class at the top of palaces above this endless ocean of bad air. That was the original Neofeud design. Obviously, poverty, suffering, and all kind of dystopian nightmares befall the lowly peasant slash serf slash slave slash worker class below, who are increasingly forgotten by the day, right? Very, very much like what's happening in the United States right now. Nobody will come for you. The United States, the government, the country, all their parties, nobody will be there for you. You have to be there for yourself, and you have to be there for your community. To what extent you can construct it and build it yourself, there will be no one there for you in the West. That's selfish individualism. That is America, and that is the Western culture writ large. It's selfish individualism. That is its final inevitable terminus point where you are at right now. Anyways, let me see. There is another Neofeud 2 image that was relevant. This is also a screenshot set from Neofeud 2, just in case you're wondering how I was doing on that game. This is a half sidebar, half Silver Spook internal ad slash, but also relevant to the topic. An omnicidal plutocracy liquidates planets by infecting them all with airborne, slow-acting pathogens, weaponizing groupthink and selfishness to exterminate the masses. The obsolete masses in Neofeud 2. Oh, my bad. That's just 2024. So this is like in this scene. This green-haired girl says the variant that kills via internal hemorrhaging, but people could simply wear masks and use air filters to protect from coffee. Since most utopians are selfish, group-thinking fools who believe our narrative that COVID is mild or non-existent, no one masks. The gullible masses will all soon be vomiting and defecating blood. Yeah, that's part of Neofeud 2. People are bleeding out their nose right now by breathing American air. So this is very accurate. The U.S. has effectively chemical weapon attacked its own population. That's basically what has happened. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Let me see if I can find that. Status Quo is a journalist. Jordan Chardon is a U.S. journalist, U.S.-based journalist that has been reporting on various environmental crimes and disasters in the United States. Let me see if I can find that. I was watching some of them, and he reported on the Flint water crisis. That's a similar crisis because it has to do with the poor and the marginalized, especially black and brown people. Obviously, the area of Atlanta and that region is the most disproportionately black areas of the United States. So obviously, the racism word is involved in this as well. If you're asking why do I keep spelling things out, it's because I don't want to get smothered digitally and visibility wise by the God algorithms. But yeah, this one, he's interviewed several people. So this woman here, she and her daughter suffered bloody noses. So when I talk about and she was within the range, she's 25 minutes, so many miles out from the plant, and she had bloody noses. So people are already bleeding out their orifices, inhaling the air of America. I thought what was that saying? Let me do that now. On the Statue of Liberty. That's why I said, breathe free. Um, the people want to breathe free, but they instead breathe poison. The new Colossus. This is the entry on the Statue of Liberty. Where is it? Yeah. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand goes worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Not so much air, it's more like chemical weapons. The chemical weapons bridged harbor. The chlorine gas, mustard gas harbor. Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp, she cries with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. This was all a lie. This was basically like, send more send more genocidal settler colonizers with black slaves to build up settler colonies to enrich the upper aristocratic European crust. That's basically what the U.S. is, and it still is. It's a nice story, but even this story is now nonsense, right? How are you supposed to breathe free, right, when you're breathing in chlorine gas? I mean, NCOVID. Right? How does one breathe free when you're breathing in chemical weapons? What did I say? Yeah, it's basically somewhere I posted another take that as World War I era chemical weapons like chlorine gas smother Americans in Georgia, and authorities leave citizens uninformed. As with COVID, don't forget to mask up. That's us. My mask now went out and about. I do appear differently depending on the day as a gender fluid native Hawaiian third gender Mahu person. But anyways, let us move on to the next little bit. So they lied to you. They just as I was talking about in the previous stream again, as I was talking about in the previous full spectrum attrition stream. The profit motive, which involves covering up, as I call it, the termite eating of all of the infrastructure, right? Where there used to be companies, where there used to be roads, bridges, electrical infrastructure. I was focusing on the electrical infrastructure, the wires, right? Maintaining the wires, maintaining the copper wires, the cables, the towers, maintaining the power centers, the power generating infrastructure, the sewer system, the water system, the huge, thousands of miles of pipes that everyone needs to get clean, potable water to drink, and to wash and to bathe, and the sewage system that has pipes that take the waste, right, away from your house and away from the populated areas to be treated, right? And the treatment system itself, right? So all of that is everything, right? Even the companies, the industry, right? Metal work, steel work, the production of cars, right? Boeing planes, GM trucks, everything that you have, right? All of that was built, and all of that, much of the infrastructure was built in the mid 20th century, and that is all being termite eaten by wealth-seeking parasites, as I talked about, or the termites themselves are the capitalist class that are hollowing out the housing, the healthcare, everything, right? And so lying is inherently involved in that, right? And lying about also who is to blame for what, where the responsibility lies, right? But by the time it comes time to figure out who is going to repair the damage caused by PG&E, what are people going to do about the destroyed homes and roads, of North Carolina, under hurricane, all the damage in Florida, right? In Carolina, in South Carolina, in Virginia, in Georgia from this huge, hurricane and its catastrophic winds and massive, tens of inches of rain that have caused the floods that you have probably seen, washing away entire towns, particularly in the Appalachian area, but all over the place. Who is going to pay for that? Who is going to repair that? The people who have stolen the money are already gone. They run away with the money. They're going to keep running away with the money. In fact, what they're doing right now is they're forcing people out, as they did in Maui during the wildfire disasters, as they have. FEMA is basically a mass wealth transfer to the richest system, right? It's about the purpose of the Red Cross of FEMA and U.S. and Western so-called aid organizations, when they aid, right, African and Asian and Arab countries. The purpose is not to aid anyone. The purpose is to accumulate as much land and resources and wealth. It's basically a giant primitive accumulation scam. It's a giant profiteering scheme. And what FEMA did, what they want to do is they want to take your goodwill and all your donations, right, and give it to wealthy investors. That's mostly a lot of what happens. And then the land itself, right, that they're supposed to be helping with rebuilding of, the goal of FEMA is to, and the Red Cross is to do the absolute bare minimum and allow the richest, most powerful investors, the Black Rocks, the billionaires, to buy up all that land. That's what the United States government exists, as it always has, to do the bidding of the rich and of the powerful and of empire, right? And so when the hurricane hits, no one is coming for you. This is the thing you have to remember. When all these videos of rescue and stuff, this is nowhere near enough. Most people are being told to just shelter. Good luck, right? Every time there's a hurricane, Florida hurricane, they basically do next to nothing, right? It's just enough to pretend like there is a response, right? Biden sent $8 billion to ISRAEL to do genocide, right? The same day that he said there's nothing to give. There's nothing to give Asheville. There's nothing to give Americans suffering the damage from the hurricane. The very same day. Let me see if I can find that one. The United States doesn't care about you. The United States wants to eat you. There is no United States. There is only the military, police, and gangster, the monopoly on force arm of a global oligarchy that's run from the United States. There is no such thing as the United States in any real sense. There's no country in the United States. The U.S. government should stop spending billions of Americans' troops' blood to defend genocide in the Middle East and have all. What they should do is have all U.S. forces, all hands on deck. All the soldiers, the Army, Marines, Navy, and Air Force, should all be deployed inside of the United States to rapidly bring food and water and shelter, build roads, build bridges, build houses, rebuild shopping centers. Right, there was like the all the Home Depots, the hardware stores, the restaurants, everything in many towns across the United States are leveled. They're stormed out. The United States should be spending everything it has, pulling everything out from its 800 military bases, its trillions of dollars of shadow spending, and $800+ billion of formal military spending. It should be spending that inside the United States. But the United States doesn't exist for you. If you live in the United States, you are a victim of the United States government. There never was and there never will be a United States. It's the number one place of the masters of lying and stealing and cheating and killing. As Mike Pompeo, head of the CIA, once said the quiet part out loud. They taught us to lie, cheat, and steal. They had entire training programs. There's a video, you can go watch it. And the CIA is basically the head of the United States. That's the actual action arm of the actual United States. But the United States is not, and it will not be there for you. I'm sorry if you were born there, if you chose to move there. The collective West is not either. It's all run by the United States. But anyway, so yeah, this week another event that happened. Obviously, Iran declared state of war against Israel. Hit them with the biggest series of hypersonic rockets attacks that there is the U.S. and the collective West have no response against. Instead of trying to, by the way, also zero innocents were killed. Basically, no people were killed in this attack. I think it might have been one accidental death because of something, piece of debris fell off, possibly. But even Israel was saying, "Oh, you didn't even kill anyone, right?" But what they did was they damaged all the F-35s and the weapons that were used to blow up children in Gaza and Lebanon, etc. And the United States has wasted, right? 30 F-35s were destroyed. 30 F-35s, right? It's $80 to $110 million per F-35. If the U.S. had just spent so they just lost $2 billion in one Nevatim Air Base strike. They lost $2 billion worth of U.S. military craft that was dropping bombs on children, innocent children. The United States could have spent just those 30 aircraft. You could have been better spent. You could rebuild entire multiple. You could rebuild the lost houses and the roads, for a good chunk of Carolina, of Georgia, for just the price of those F-35s. But no, so those got blown up. The United States is spending more money. It's giving more weapons. It's sending its troops to do genocide. You know what's even more interesting? Some of the troops don't want to go. Let's see if I can find that one. Some of the troops don't want to go. Check this out. U.S. military personnel are cannon fodder for the worst people in the world currently doing live stream genocide. I already said that word several times, so it doesn't really matter now. If you're gonna post this, leave out my info, please. So this is a post this is a message from an active U.S. military personnel, from a U.S. soldier. He said, "I'm in 82nd stationed in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We have guys in our unit with family in Western North Carolina that are trying to get to their family. Guys who are asking to put in passes to go help any way they can. They're all getting told no." So these are North Carolinian military, U.S. military, North Carolinian U.S. soldiers that want to help their families and their communities in their own state, and the U.S. is saying you cannot help them. It's like, so you actually have the American citizens are like, I would like to help other Americans, right? The U.S. military personnel is like, I want to help our citizens. Please let me help American citizens. And the United States government, which works for the billionaire class, the imperialists, and the center of global corruption, a ball of vampires, as was recently described by Vladimir Putin, not inaccurately. The U.S. government is telling the soldiers, you cannot help people who have lost their houses in North Carolina. You cannot help your family whose the roof collapsed and they have no power, they have no water, and they can't even access. They have no access to the outside world. They're stranded, right? You cannot help the grandma that can't get her heart medication because there is no in and no out, because all the bridges are gone and half of her house was underwater, right? And she barely made it to the attic and her neighbor died, right? The U.S. personnel who want to help are being said, you cannot help. Why? Why not? Because you have to be on standby to support the genocide in the Middle East. So you have Americans that are literally being told by the higher ups, you cannot help. Again, the United States is not. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about its soldiers either. right? This is why it's having a harder and harder time recruiting. The U.S. and the Europeans and the collective West, the capitalist world, you can only ever recruit because they have to, like, the most energy of the West goes into studying how to get people to sign up for their militaries and to work for them, despite them being the worst entities in the world. U.S. corporations, Western capitalist corporations, and colonial capitalist system as a whole, right? The billionaire class. So everything they do, all these ads about, all the propaganda about, 1492, Columbus sailed Ocean Blue, America won World War II, we're demanding freedom, democracy, human rights, right? All the Captain Americas and the Iron Man and the Avengers, that is money. The purpose of that is to convince people to join the military, to blow up people, to maintain the global system of global colonial capitalism, which ends up also causing these disasters, right? But it's getting harder to control the masses now, as I've talked about historically. They're losing the disinformational narrative battle. Part of the money, the control over the currency, domination over currency, military, and information, or the narrative, what people believe, what's in people's minds, the consciousnesses of the people. And because they're losing control of that, right? Not the corporate, everything you look at the corporate media, they're not going to tell you anything about this. They're not going to describe anything I'm telling you right now. The corporate media is just saying shelter in place. Western media, the government of the United States is saying between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. the air is safe. But at night, there's weather movements that's causing the chlorine gas to come back in at night. So you can go home and shelter in place at night, but you got to come out during the day. That's absolute nonsense. Chlorine gas doesn't wake up at 7 in the morning, go out and come back at 7 p.m. at night. The gas clouds in that, even if there was an air pattern, that's not the weather patterns. Don't. It's it's absolute nonsense to get you to like COVID, get yourself killed, sickened, and disabled, maximizing corporate profits as you go to work in the shops and the restaurants, keep producing in their factories for their profits. That's what they want, right? You are going to get sick and you are going to die, and your family's going to get sick and your family's going to die and get disabled and permanent lung damage and cancer. They're not going to tell you anything. So the woman in this video that was being interviewed, she said, because Jordan is like, you seem remarkably calm for somebody who is being told there is a giant catastrophic damage causing lung, eye, and nosebleed causing chlorine cloud in your air right now, and it's been there for days and it's not going away. You are remarkably calm. I would be panicking, freaking out. Wouldn't you be like fleeing that area? And she said, like, I hear what you're saying. I know I'm seem very composed, but I am absolutely freaking out. I am terrified. I wish I could up and leave. I just want to get in my car and drive thousands of miles away from where I am. But then I think about, how will I pay for my rent? I can't afford to lose my house. I can't afford to lose my job because of the knock-on impacts of what I could have. I have a relative who I'm paying for her medication right now. I'm trying to support GoFundMes of other people. I can't lose my job because I need to survive and pay for all of this hyper expensive rent, food, house, clothing, etc. That whole area is Cancer Alley, right? Why is that? It's because the United States, has been trying to kill black people. Let's be real. It's been trying to liquidate black and brown people, and the majority of them, the highest concentrations are in that area. And why is Flint's water still bad? Some of the most predominantly black areas in the U.S. in Michigan, right? Why is their water still toxic? I mean, most Americans have some kind of toxic water, but the most toxic is the non-white areas and indigenous areas, right? And she's like, I am, but we are all kind of frozen in place, kind of like during COVID, right? And the government and the corporations and the media is encouraging us to simply just kind of freeze in place, like scared mice or like deers in the headlights, right? We know that we're all dying, and we could die anytime. It's a catastrophic event that's killing us, but we don't know how to even take these kind of extreme actions, because we've all been like conditioned to accept this kind of we were conditioned to accept these horrific nightmare scenarios that they're not quite like everything is exploding, but they are slowly invisibly damaging us in ways that are not. It's not like if the air was on fire, people would be running away, right? I made a video about this. Why COVID is better than a 100% killing super Ebola, right? COVID will kill and disable more people than Ebola. Why? Because it kills slowly and in a difficult to define way. You don't die immediately, right? But because it is a slow, silent, difficult to trace killer, it is the ideal virus to liquidate and kill off billions of people. I know that sounds extreme, but I mean, that is what is happening, right? In case you haven't noticed. Where's my video on that? I did a video on that. It was called Control Thinning, in which I describe also because the other aspect of neo-feudalism, right, is that the rich don't necessarily want you around, right? They only if other humans, if other poor subordinated life support systems for factory screwdriver factory part moving hands, that's what you are, right? You are a cog in a machine. You're not a person to the United States, the collective West, the white supremacist colonialist capitalist system. You're irrelevant. What matters is that your hands can move Amazon packages from the Amazon delivery truck to the porch or the apartment building, right? That's all that matters. If you do tech work, your body is a life support system for a brain and fingers that can type keystrokes into a corporate marketing office marketing spread for a magazine or a website, right? You artist, you're just a life support system for a Spider-Man ad or a Spider-Man movie creation. If they could replace you with generative plagiarism software, they can't. But I mean, if they could, they would, right? Because human beings are irrelevant to the Western colonialist white capitalist system, right? Of selfish individualism, also known as encoded systematic psychopathy. And you are superfluous. You are Biolab fodder, Just like if you are a soldier, you are cannon fodder. You're irrelevant, except as you can pull triggers to kill rising African, Asian, and Arabs who are over oil and minerals. That's basically all you are as a soldier. You're not defending anything except billionaire profits. You're irrelevant. When you get sick and when you die, when your legs get blown off, you will be discarded, as millions of U.S. and Western soldiers are. And so if you want to kill a lot of people, if a rapidly spreading 100% fatality rate illness, right, or near 100% fatality rate illness, like a super Ebola, is not a good way to kill the population, because people will rapidly witness the death visibly, and everyone would start masking, and it would be very difficult to stop it. But because COVID moves, it spreads rapidly. You cannot immediately see the omeletification of your neurons. You can't see the 30 to 60 day delayed strokes, heart attacks, permanent learning disabilities. It's hard to directly trace, right, the permanent damage, disablement, the chronic fatigue syndrome that is causing you to not even be able to move for more than 15 minutes a day. It's difficult to immediately trace that back to the COVID. I almost want to say that COVID was engineered that way. I don't have proof of that in the 330 U.S. biolabs, Fort Detrick. They claim that it was leaked in Wuhan. But, if I was a sick Western ruler or transnational elite member, I would, that's the best way to liquidate the majority of the human population slowly over time. Like it's like a frog in the pot, right? You don't want the frogs jumping out of the pot, but COVID is a frog in the pot virus. The chlorine gas is, I'm not saying that it's intentional, that the United States is spilling chlorine gas into the air of its poorer, blacker, browner areas to kill them off. But it's a good way to kill them off if you wanted to get away with it or try to. It's not that the United States can't get away with killing its own population. It just killed two Boeing. The United States just had a corporation shoot in the head two American middle to upper middle class white older men, and nobody batted an eye. Everybody just fell silent. So it's not like the United States couldn't just kill off huge numbers of its population. It has. It does it all the time. Of any class, of any race. It's harder to get away with a whiter man, but the fact that they can get away with it so easily tells you, right? But it can be difficult for business to overtly mass disable and kill off people. So you want to do it more in a more controlled way. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that's what the United States and that's what the collective West is doing. Okay. So let's move on though. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna take a. No, I shouldn't take a break. Should I take a break? It's 1:10. No, I won't take a break. Give me 1 second. I got to fix my chat window here. Oh, my internet has apparently gone down on my alternate computer. There you go. But yeah, so in case you're not sure in case you just tuned in, yeah, I'm talking about the Biolab leakage, fallout, which is the fallout from the Helene Hurricane Helene. Sorry, I did not see any chat because my chat computer was off. Thanks a lot, McLovin, for tuning in, and also thank you for your generous support as well, and of course Grant. Thanks for stopping by. Oh yeah, my computer said there were only 6 people watching, so that's good. Anyway, let's just keep going though. Okay, so somebody else who has suffered. I don't think it is fair to say acceptance implies choice. We're all being held hostage in our cities, towns, and in this country. Frankly, true. Fatih the Street is a Black Native person, autistic person as well. Media critic and disability activist, and also follows me apparently, is suffering catastrophic damage. Is one of the Black people, the disproportionately Black and non-white people around that area that is suffering this catastrophic damage from this chemical weapon in the air that the United States has released and allowed and covered up. And it's very sad. We literally cannot afford to leave. We cannot quit our jobs. You see, this is really sick. But this is the problem. Millions of people are dying, and you are being forced to stick in your job. If your building was on fire, if the government declared what it should, which is it's a state of national, it is a massive emergency, then businesses could be shut down and people could evacuate and not suffer a chemical weapon attack to their lungs for days upon days. Millions of people are going to die decades early because of this. People have already died. They're just not being chalked up to this. But people are dying because of this. The chlorine gas exposure, as we are, somebody clocked it at 150 parts per million, right? And and it's not going down. Like, it's not dissipating. It's all over the place. And people are being trapped in a cage like rats. They're being trapped in a cage, or like dogs in a. They are being kennelled and gassed by the United States and the corporatocracy that it is. Because it costs money for the corporation that runs the Biolabs to fix this problem. Much of that corporation, if it's like all the other ones, has been already termite eaten and hollowed out, which is why it is not being properly maintained. There have been several fires, chemical fires at that plant already in the last few years, Biolab. And yeah, so you are being gassed to death. It's horrific. But it's not perceptible enough. It's not extreme enough for you to leave, right? Like you are just being harmed slowly by 1,000 cuts. This is kind of the U.S. war of attrition on its own population. It's trying to attrit bits of your lung tissue, right? It's trying to scrape away your mucous membranes, and also your bank account, such that you have no support network, right? If you have a support network of 10, but every time a disaster happens, you lose 3, right? Eventually, you will fall too. This is the goal of the United States: is to decommunityize. It is to decommunity everyone that it can and liquidate what remains of them. This is kind of why it's nonsense to talk about birth rates and building America. Like, there's no future. There's no future in this place. There's only death, and there's only the extraction of all remaining wealth in the controlled demolition of the so-called free world. Right? That's basically what's happening. Corporations are pulling as much money out. They made money building it, like I said last time, right? Whether it was the Vanderbilts or it was the corporations in the 50s and the Fords that made the cars and built the highways. But as the highways are dissolved and the cars are swept away by hurricanes, they make money short selling their own country on Wall Street and etc. The people making the most money are the mega financial institutions. BlackRock is eating everything as we speak. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are consuming any land that is to be consumed. As I predicted in Neofeud, in Neofeud and Terminus Machina, the Clinton Bush family, Warren Clinton Bush, proves himself by buying the entire United States at pennies on the dollar after a catastrophic financial and environmental collapse. And that's basically what's happening. It's not quite at the same speed as a Neofeud. And it's not one person. It's but it's basically a handful of the richest families of the United States collectively invested in these mega Wall Street hedge funds, waiting for a black swan to whack you, like a hurricane, a wildfire, a super cool troposphere ice storm, and then they swallow everything that you thought you had. You never had anything. You were just a piece of flesh. You're a piece of meat for the United States oligarchy to eat. So anyway, I always thought if anything, it was like a major disaster with life or death consequences happened to me, I'd leave no matter what until it happened to me, and I have nothing to leave with. All of my savings are gone from trying to find a place to live that was safe and good. $15,000 gone. My partner / caretaker who works near where the Biolab fire happened has to go to work every day because nobody is hiring. I'm on disability, and any money I had from my disability back pay is now gone because of the housing crises, which is worst in the Southeast. We are struggling. Nobody would choose to sit in poisonous gas that'll cause cancer and other respiratory issues. Who knows what in the future if they had a choice. All the go violently revolt rhetoric in the world don't mean anything if you can't even get your CS fulfilled to live. So I mean, this is part of it. Is like obviously Americans have been conditioned to accept a lot of things. many Americans would like to do something. I should say, people in the United States. People in the United States. I don't think there will be Americans at the current rate. There will be no Americans in about 25, maybe 5 years. There might not be any America left. The'll just be a balkanized wreckage that now is Indigenous Federation in the Belt and Road Initiative. But to the extent that there are Americans, I mean, many of them just they're conditioned to accept the treatment that they are given. But many would like to leave, but they simply like the financial decisions, and they are engendered, they are created this way so that you simply choose to sit and rot to death in place from the disaster after disaster. To choose, it's hard. It's hard. It's costly. It's expensive to move. To try to take collective action against what is hurting you is risky, and it's hard. It's just it's a terrible thing that's happening. But this is why I'm doing this. Is if you cannot move, at minimum, if you can get access to a acid gas mask that can at least protect you in the near term. If you cannot move, like, definitely do that. Get some goggles, because one thing you can do is not rely on corporate, like listening to corporate media will literally get you killed at this point. Listening to any capitalist US Western controlled channel will get you killed. It's literally killing people right now. It will get you bankrupt. It will get you financially annihilated. It will remove whatever remains of your housing, your healthcare, your food, and your access to any of that stuff. You have to it's not even kind of like, don't listen to Western media because it's kind of silly, annoying, and sometimes it lies. It's like, it is actively enabling the genocide and annihilation of its own citizens, especially the non-white ones. It's really horrible. Oh, yeah, take it easy, Grant. Okay, let's keep moving. For years, Biolab chemical manufacturing has been poisoning both Southeast Louisiana. So as I said, so this is not even like a new phenomenon. Biolab chemical manufacturing has been poisoning both Southeast Louisiana, Cancer Alley, and Atlanta with chlorine gas. They are a Toronto-based company. What do we know about Canada? Right, Canada is the headquarters of planetary indigenous ethnic cleansing, and resource. The Toronto Stock Exchange actually has over 75% of the world's mining and resource companies, like silver, gold, corporations, lithium. That's where they're headquartered, right? So the Canada has built up this artificial facade of being friendly, nice, the better North Americans. No, and not that they particularly run anything there, but they do a lot of the dirty work of the U.S. empire and the global capitalist system. It doesn't really, it could be Toronto based or it could be US based. It doesn't really matter. Could be New York based. It's just as bad. But the reality is that this is not a new phenomenon. This has been happening a long time. There's mountains of studies on environmental racism. In Hawaii, we have the U.S. military. We have the most Superfund site, meaning extreme environmental damage. Hawaii has the most per acre environmental damage. You wouldn't think so, right? But it's the most Superfund extreme damage sites of any place in the United States. Hawaii is the highest per capita military occupation. And we also have Red Hill fuel poisoning of our drinking water in Oahu. Chlorine, there's chromium-6 and lead and all kind of other substances have been chronically found for decades and not dealt with in water in Hawaii. Hawaii is also the most non-white place in the United States. It's like Georgia and Atlanta. Hawaii is the most non-white place in the so-called United States, and we also have some of the most toxic conditions to live in. And so the poisoning of the air and water is especially around poor and non-white areas and indigenous areas is well documented, and this is a continuation of that. This one is a very extreme one. This is basically a Chernobyl event, worse than Chernobyl in some senses, in the total impacted and in the way it's being handled. But yeah, it's not the first time that this has happened. In Chicago, you have to learn to differentiate because it's always crowded. Okay, let's look at something else. Actually, let me look at this real quick. Oh, are you gonna load? Maybe you're not. Okay, let's move on. The CDC is based in. This is something else. Did you know the CDC is based in Atlanta and they aren't saying anything about their city being poisoned with chlorine gas? That's because public health died when the CDC sided with corporate interests in the face of COVID. They want us apathetic to overlapping tragedies, unprotected and unaware. Indeed. You know something else? You know, I talked about this on the Wednesday stream. There was a TV show called Containment. In this TV show, Containment, the Center for Disease Control, which is in Georgia. This takes place in Georgia, right? And a terrible virus gets out. They have to put a cordon sanitaire. They basically entrap. They close in the predominantly black city, right, of Atlanta. They basically they cordon it off. They make a cordon sanitaire. And you later discover that it is massive U.S. government malfeasance. The Center for Disease Control itself is implicated, and the government is lying, giving half-truths, misinformation, and is getting countless people killed due to an airborne or an air-transmitted, air-transmitted deadly substance. Right. In this case, it is a form of. It's almost Ebola-like. It's an Ebola-like, semi-flu-like virus. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it kills at a rate of virtually 100%. And people in this case, people die within 24 to 48 hours. You know, bleeding out of their eyes and ears and every orifice. In a very, I mean, it's for TV, it's for film, but what has happened, right? In the Biolab leak in Georgia, right? In the same place, in the same cancer alley, in the same state, is essentially the plot of this TV show, right? Where there's a black cop who's a cop investigating to try to deal with these crooked CDC health officials, crooked U.S. federal government agencies, corruption in the government locally. The police are involved. The police chief is involved, and there's this whole the main two characters are like a white and a black police officer, but it all deals with this event, right, that happens. And the thing is, like, whenever, I say this, I don't have receipts on this, but whenever there is a horror movie, right, of any kind of scale, every horror movie is an admission of the U.S. and the West, of the white capitalist world, right? Resident Evil, I mean, it's not even, it's Resident Evil is the cry for help of workers in Japanese biolabs engineering viruses to kill the Chinese, basically. I mean, if I had to guess, that's in a video game, right? Creating the T virus, right, is based up because there have and are 330 bioweapons laboratories around the world 56 in Ukraine. There are definitely some in Japan, unknown exactly how many. Fort Detrick is the world's largest reservoir of anthrax, smallpox, and all the world's biggest viruses. U.S. senators were sent anthrax and other Fort Detrick stolen bioweapons in the noughties, if you remember that, right? And it became such a scandal. They had to really clean it up and shut it down and bury a lot of this information, because in the 90s it was deemed that bioweapons, the Pentagon and the U.S. Department of Defense deemed that bioweapons would be a more efficient, cleaner, cheaper, and more harder to trace killer than a nuclear weapon, right? You know, there's all these bioweapon shows. You know, there is this zombie movie in the early 90s. It was one of the Dawn of the Dead or the Living Deads, right? But it's all a U.S. military weaponizing zombie viruses, right? Against our enemies of the United States and the collective capitalist colonialist West. But all that is actually an admission of what the U.S. was already doing, right? Resident Evil is like an admission of what the Japanese vassals in the United States and their military contractors are making them do, right? Containment 28 days later is what the British government was preparing for, because the British works with the United States to investigate, and they run like half of the salaries of the West are just rich technicians, biologists, scientists, and military personnel running through scenarios of what happens if we unleash, you know, a bioengineered furin cleavage site variation of SARS virus into London, into a suburban U.S., right? That, like, it's a really sick place. It's like Dr. Strangelove people is like, you know, that's why there's so many serial killer TV shows and movies. It's so that people who are gainfully employed in the U.S. and the collective West can have something to relate to, because they want to see themselves reflected. That's why they're like watching these psychopath movies, because that's what your job is to run through scenarios. What if we release hybridized Ebola in every airport in, you know, in Iran, Beirut, Moscow, Beijing, all at once? What would that look like? How can we make the most money doing that? This is what people spend their time doing in corporations and government. They don't want to tell you this, but anyone who makes 80, 150, 200,000 a year is surrounded by this horror. It's a horror movie. Horror movie is being gainfully employed in the collective capitalist colonialist West, right? You have to work with genocide doers all day long. The difference is in 2024, you can see what they do, right? You can see the sausage that they make all day in Washington, D.C., in New York, Los Angeles, Tokyo, London, Paris. And one of them was, one of the jobs was to run through, design weapons to basically kill off the black population, you know, or kill off masses of, you know, because, you know, slowly poisoning black people with lead, radon, and arsenic-filled Flint water, that wasn't going fast enough. So what if we just like we just release, you know, we'll release certain kinds of viruses, but we could kill. There's an overt plan to kill 10 to 60 or potentially 200 million Chinese with nuclear weapons. It was just released. It was just a new plan, right? People got paid big bucks to write this for the Rand Corporation, for the U.S. military. There's a recent U.S. military paper that was said we could kill maybe 200 million Chinese with nuclear weapons. Again, right? It's like this, like, and what they do is they study, you know, if the fallout cloud travels at, you know, 10, 20, 30 miles per hour, the fallout cloud, like the Miasma, right? How many Chinese would starve to death if we irradiated all of Western and Central China's rice fields? How many could we starve to death, right? This is what Americans and Europeans think about, that get paid the big bucks, right? How could we start? How many would die due to jellyfish babies? How could we reduce their birth rate by destroying the reproductive organs with nuclear radiation combined with some kind of super COVID, some Chinese DNA tailored virus, right? And if we simultaneously release the Ukrainian Biolab produced Slavic DNA targeted, you know, carrier, migratory bird carried H5N1 that we have made in Ukraine, how many Russians could we kill? Could we kill 50% of the Russian population? Could we? And again, when we're talking about killing, we're talking about killing children. We're talking about killing women. We're talking elderly, all just innocent, random civilians, right? All the West does is think about how to liquidate populations, right? Control them, brainwash them, kill them off, virtually all civilians. The more civilians, the better. In fact, right, as you can see, what's happening in Israel, they choose to target children and women as much as possible. They don't even know how to kill Hezbollah or Hamas if they wanted to. They're too cowardly, and they have no soul left. There's no humanity left there. So the people that are doing the live stream genocide, killing innocent people all day, those are the people that are designing the policies around this and what to do about this chemicals, right? I'm sure there are people that are celebrating in DC right now. There are CDC officials that are cheering. They're going, finally, we get to roll out the plans that we had. I spent years of my life calculating how many black and brown and indigenous people would die from rheumatoid arthritis and from asthma and from extreme respiratory collapse. Finally, my plans get to be realized. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that they're celebrating, but I mean, like, you know, it's kind of like now we can see we see how our plans will roll out. And I tell you that because you know, that sounds like scary and horrible, and like obviously I don't know people at the CDC right now. I'm just saying that is the kind of thinking. They're not thinking about how to save you. They're not thinking about how to keep you safe. There's no Department of Safety. There's no Department of Health. There's the Department of Population Liquidation, right? There's no healthcare in America. There is only universal death care and universal wealth extraction. If you go to a hospital, the probability you come out with COVID, RSV, or some other infection and you'll die from that is higher than if you never went in the hospital to begin with. Unless you're like literally dying from like a heart attack or something, you are more likely to die going into a U.S. hospital from something you might catch there, unless it's something that like immediately would save your life in a short term, like you're having a stroke, you know, stuff like that. There is no public health. There's public liquidation. The United States ruling class and the Western collective ruling class don't care about your future. They don't see a future in the United States. They don't really want a future in the United States. There's money to be made. Again, termite eating every lung, every building, and every street, every electrical grid, all the art and all the content you've ever produced. Right? There is no one there for you in the United States. That's why I say if you want to work in tech and science, engineering, and math, you just leave. Go to China. Go to Tsinghua University. $700 a year, $200 to $400 rents, super affordable, cheap food, no threat of fascism, no biolab leaks. People that care about each other. They have actual communities there. If you want to do that, you gotta get out. If you want to help to rebuild after the fall of all of this. You know, we're going to need like hardy people inside the, North America, because you simply will not survive it otherwise. The U.S. is that's the reality. It's in a controlled demolition stage. All of Europe is, the collective West is. It's going to be very hard. It's going to get harder. There's going to be events like this on a regular basis. Like this event, I almost feel like this chemical explosion. I mean, I don't have proof of this, so don't quote me on that. But I would not be surprised if this was intentionally set, because now you can test what will happen. What will Americans do, right? Right. Again, the people who get paid money is people who sit around in government and corporate offices, and they watch how many Americans leave, how many Americans report. Can we put a lid on this? How much will Americans tolerate? Are Americans tapped out? Are they tapped out so much that they will just shut up and suffer and die, right? And based upon that, right, when very minimal reaction happens, there's no pushback, right? Then you can just trigger another. The next time there's a storm, with plausible deniability, you can just trigger another gas leak somewhere else. All you got to do is take a bunch of chlorine, take a bunch of volatile compounds somewhere, right? Where there's an event, and then you release that. People have to evacuate. You know, I mean, again, that's the way that people think. What options do the U.S. have? What are they going to give you? Healthcare, housing, or food? They're going to like rebuild America. They don't have the U.S. doesn't have the electricity to power the vehicles. Even if they wanted to start moving towards electrical vehicles, the U.S. has increased by less than 5% power output in the last 30 years. I mean, just to give you a counter example, China has increased by 9 to 10 times, and the vast majority of that is renewable, solar, wind, etc. They're working on artificial suns. So the United States does not have the will, and then that's not the ruling class, doesn't have the will and doesn't have the capacity. It doesn't even know how to, even if it wanted to, rebuild itself. All it can do is destroy itself and make money betting on its people taking the fall. You know, like the boxer that takes the fall and then somebody makes money betting on the loss, right, of a particular boxer. It's like people, as I talked about the Big Short last time, right? The United States ruling class is betting America's infrastructure will collapse more. It seems paradoxical, but you can make money. You can make money as companies fall apart, as growth collapses, as buildings fall down, as the air degrades. You can make money doing that. It's called short selling, where you basically bet that the value of something is going to drop. You bet that the amount of power is going to drop. You bet that the number of Americans is going to drop. You can make money doing that, right? They did that on a small scale. They did that in the 08-09 financial crisis, right? But that was mostly just residential housing, right? The difference is now everything in the United States is being eaten, right? It's not just housing. And I talked about this at length last time, so I won't belabor that too much. It's it's the industries, it's the land, it's the road itself, it's the quality of the air, it's the everything, right? It's the infrastructure, it's the water, it's the sewer, it's every last thing. It's your life. You know, people can make money betting. You know, you can make money betting on people, whether people live or die. You know, because that impacts anything that can change numbers in spreadsheet somewhere is something that can be bet on. Now it's like, this seems like unhinged. This seems like nonsensical. This seems like absolutely malicious to the highest degree. Well, yeah, there's no depths to which the West will not sink. You know, these are the people that have consumed human flesh for centuries. They ate people. They they've sucked the money and resource. They've enslaved entire continents. They've bloodlet and wiped entire peoples out. You know, Native Americans, killed and slaughtered countless Africans, enslaved all the continents of the majority of the earth. These people have no morality at all. Okay, so morality doesn't even enter into conversation when it comes to Western countries and certainly the ruling classes. Right, so don't. I'm really rubbing that in because I don't want people to come. You should. We do what we do at the Silver Spoon Cooperative, right? Because we try our best. My family is not doing very good at this, because we try to be realistic, not necessarily pessimistic, just trying to be realistic about what economy, what country, what system we are in, right? What the reality of the world that we are in under the U.S. colonial capitalist illegal occupation, right? Not sovereign. We're not fully de facto sovereign in the way that some other countries are. You know, we're not Cuba. We're not Cuba. We're not China. We're not Iran. You know, we can't make our own decisions because of the U.S. occupation. You know, we suffer like Puerto Rico as well, right? We're not unlike Cuba. We're not able to control our own territory, and so because of that, that's where we live. We live in this, you know, to an extent. So we have to. It's part of why we don't ever not mask anywhere we go. We don't. I mean, there's lots of places that we like to go. We don't go. We don't go to big concerts. We don't go to restaurants. We don't go to big events in the for entertainment. We don't go to like we can go to the mall, but everywhere we go we're masked. We're not ever unmasked in a large gathering indoors. We hedge everything. We plant food all the time. We do as much as we possibly can. I mean, we know that obviously the United States will try to kill off indigenous people, as it always has, by destroying all their food sources and poisoning their water and land, which they do in Hawaii, by the way, like everywhere else. But as much as we can, we try to do everything we can to maintain our ability to keep surviving in this system as it collapses. And I recommend everybody do that as well. I should probably get back to the topic and finish because it's 1:43. Okay, let me just see if there's any more links. I just kind of went off in like 7 directions at once. And let me get back to. Oh, why is this thing stop popping up on my screen? Okay. Yeah, the CDC is based. I was talking about containment, and then I kind of went off. But yeah, I would recommend if you wanna, I do recommend watching this show though. If you can stomach that, because yeah, it's basically what is happening in Atlanta is being impacted by this, but it's kind of a cross between COVID and the Georgia Biolab leak together, because it's in Georgia, it's in Atlanta, it involves U.S. and government and cover-ups, and letting its people get sick and die for money, profit, and career. But then it's also but then it's a virus. It's not a chemical in the air. Okay. The CDC is based on already did that one. Reports are coming out of Appalachia of town hall meetings that it was indeed a land grab. People are being told they no longer own their homes and have to vacate immediately. No more help going in by civilians or they will be arrested. This is what happened in Hawaii, by the way, during the Lahaina fires. As I said, this happens every time. Again, the purpose of FEMA is to steal as much of your wealth, property, land, and everything else that they possibly can. Stealing people that are donating money and then not giving it to people that need it, and stealing money and stealing houses from people who have just had their domestic households destroyed by fire, hurricane, ash, or flood. Right? That's the purpose of U.S. The so-called nonprofit system. Red Cross is the same way. I've seen this happen in several disasters in Hawaii, by the way. During the volcanic eruption in the 2010s of Kilauea, when over 2,000 people's houses were destroyed by lava, pyroclastic flows in Hawaii, the Red Cross was hoarding beds. The Red Cross and FEMA were hoarding beds and food, like cans of tuna fish, while there were old, like 80-year-old Hawaiian ladies were sleeping on wet concrete in the rain that were displaced by the volcano. The Red Cross and FEMA had an entire like a giant room full of beds, full of food. They were just hoarding it. In fact, and they encouraged monetary donations. Why? Because they want to steal that and give it to Hillary Clinton and billionaires and Bill Gates, or they're major investors in the U.S. corporatocracy that's completely run by money for the rich and the most horrible people in the world. And so I've seen this has happened. And so there was a Hawaiian lady who was donating. She was going to donate beds, but she was going to donate more beds. She had bought 10 beds from her own, because, in some of Hawaii, we still have normal human society left that's not completely soul lost, empty vampires like the United States. And so we were donating, like people were donating like 10, 20. I mean, to the extent that there is humanity in the West, it's just average humans that have not been completely broken and corrupted by the greater amoral colonial capitalist structures, right? Racist structures. And so the people that are doing mutual aid to help, it's like, it's just, I've seen the same kind of phrases in some of the Carolina and that area. It's like, we gotta help us. We gotta help like people. We just gotta help like regular people like us. We just gotta help each other. That's it. There is no help for you. It's same in Hawaii. So when Hawaiians came to donate to there was a shelter set up in the Pahoa Park specifically. The FEMA and the U.S. organizations, the disaster aid organizations, because they were hoarding the aid and then like selling it off. Who knows what they were doing with it? Not giving out. They said, we have to triage and make sure that people that really, the excuse that they said, right? These rich, like they're like the people that you can tell the FEMA people, because the people that were working at FEMA, they look like the descendants of Bill Gates. Like they're like 6'2" wasp, like FBI agent looking people. It's like, what the hell are these people doing, right? They're like standing around. They're like waiting to get a job, blowing up Afghanistan, being an ambassador in Kuwait, somewhere in Africa, right? And they make a bunch of money in DC. That's what these are. This is people who work at FEMA and Red Cross. I mean, a lot of them, not every single one, but a lot of them. These are people that are trying to escalate their career in the collective West, pretending to help people, or they're like young people that think that they're going to help people because their parents, who are billionaires and billionaires in the U.S. and the West, told them that you can help people at FEMA. Right? It's like Human Rights Watch. They rely on a constant influx of cannon fodder, right? Who think that Human Rights Watch is going to defend human rights, right? Like U.S. military personnel is young people who think America's military is going to defend freedom and democracy. But the same thing is for these aid organizations. Anyway, so because of that, the Hawaiian grandma that we knew her because she was her family like delivered water around here. She said, I'm not gonna give it to this FEMA, this U.S. FEMA. What are this? They're basically stealing the beds out from under old disabled native grandmas, and just regular people that need beds. And she was like pointing to this local Hawaiian lady that was donating like 20 Costco mattresses to people to sleep on. She was pointing at, why are the people sleeping outside when you got a whole room full of beds? Why are people hungry when you're hoarding all this food? And the FEMA people said, they basically said, these people aren't needy enough. So people that had no homes or sleeping on the wet concrete are not in enough need, right? Their need is not justified. It's like trying to jump through the hoops at the welfare office. It's called the death fare office, right? It's to make sure that you feel horrible about yourself. And the government that has stolen everything from you, and food and housing and healthcare that should be a right, can be denied to you, and you can be made to feel like a small person. You weren't needy enough. You have to be sleeping on like a bed of nails. You have to be like sleeping on mud for FEMA to consider you needy enough. When the entire concrete park is filled up with poor Hawaiians displaced by a volcano, and you're all sleeping in the wet mud, then we'll give you a bed. So that's the way the U.S. is. That's the way that FEMA is, Red Cross, all West. Don't donate any money to any Western U.S. affiliated, any kind of large scale emergency center, nonprofit, all that crap. That's all just nonprofits or for-profit tax deductible money laundering write-off methods to buy senators and Congress people. There's nothing legitimate anywhere in the United States in the West. You have to like go individually, person to person, with like a trust network that you have to build. You have to build guerrilla information networks, because you are in the mall of the Death Star. You're in the dying mall of the Death Star. If you're in the U.S. and the collective West, nobody cares about you. Everything you eat, everything you consume, everything you see is lies. You have to find human beings that are in some bit of non-cancerous tissue that are capable of telling you anything true. And that's why we do what we do at the Silver Spoon Cooperative and Silver Spoon Games. But anyway, that's a Hawaii specific story. This is the same thing in Lahaina. FEMA and the Red Cross are hoarding beds. This video of this I somewhere in my old Lahaina thread when it was happening. They were hoarding material, hoarding beds. FEMA and the Red Cross were stopping Hawaiians and other just local members of the community in Lahaina from getting beds and medicine to people in the disaster zone that were stranded. It's the same as the hurricane. All right, so it's like every time this happens, it's like the same thing. But the United States and the collective West, it's like Israel, right? It's like you will believe it's just defending itself, right? And the Palestinians are just a bunch of savages, right? Like Native Americans, but in the Middle East, right? So the West is never, ever, and never will ever tell any truth in any significant way. It's mass death and destruction and going to kill everything on the earth if we keep letting it go. The transnational capitalist elite are going to keep doing this. And historically, this is what they have done. In Lahaina, the U.S. military poisoned our water. Home will become uninhabitable soon. This is still the case, by the way. I'm sure I can find a year ago, U.S. colonial capitalist land abuse, water theft, and criminal negligence in Hawaii resulted in the burning of Lahaina, many deaths, and displacement of our Hawaiian people. Today, we're still fighting against ethnic cleansing by decommodifying land, water, and more. The forced displacement of Kanaka Maoli Native Hawaiians like myself is acceptable injustice. People were camping out. People who were displaced by Lahaina fires were camping out on the beach for almost a year with no house. Thousands of people, right? So if your house was displaced in Carolina, look forward to being without a house for years. You just may you just be, I don't know, just live on the street, I guess. Join the homeless. Did you know that when you become homeless, your life expectancy gets cut in half? So if you're 35, your life expectancy is around 40 years right now, or it's 38. If you and most homeless people, you will die or you would be disappeared shortly after you become homeless. In a lot of cases, right? Even if you don't die, you just, things happen to you. Let's just put it that way, and you're not around anymore, right? So the millions of people displaced, like, after Hurricane Katrina, a lot of people just, like, they didn't die in the hurricane, but they died early. They just disappeared, and they're just forgotten. They obviously became homeless, and America doesn't care about them, and it doesn't catalog them. And when you die homeless, like, I've seen it because I work with homeless people. When you die homeless, your body just gets disposed of, right? You've already been disowned by a wealth worshipping capitalist American so-called society that doesn't care. So once you become homeless, you become a non-person. People just forget that you exist, right? Family members forget that you exist. That's the way you're engineered to be in the United States. So a lot of people, the reality is that people are coming in America by dying by the millions all the time, being neglected and forgotten to death. So when the disasters happen, you have it's just another wave of these early liquidated, homeless, forgotten people. Same thing in Hawaii. Dozens of Hawaiians killed themselves in the 2 months after Lahaina. Like, it was like, the numbers were up 40, 50, 60 Hawaiians just killed themselves because they didn't know how, not because the fire killed them, but because the rents were like $6,000. The rents doubled from $4,000 to $6,000 to $8,000. Like a 2-bedroom, like 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-bedroom went to $6,000 a month because Hawaiians didn't know how they would survive on Maui. They just killed themselves. So that's what happened, and thousands of others left. 100 plus died in the fire, and thousands are still homeless. So nobody is coming. The only thing about Hawaii is there's some Hawaiianness left in Hawaii. It's not all white American. So people did help each other. But the emergency disaster groups, no, they're not there. They're there to take whatever you have and turn your house into a resort or BlackRock investment suburbs of some kind. I don't know. I don't know what kind of suburb America is going to build anymore. But what they want to do is basically whatever they can to steal everything you have, and don't donate any money to Red Cross or FEMA or any of those big organizations. They're not going to do anything. To get the resources directly, if you much as you can, straight to the people that are actually in need. Right? Any capitalist, corporate, U.S. affiliated, nonprofit, any NGO, anything, absolutely cannot be trusted. Every day, more of this crap is springing up. People have there's like the donation industrial complex where people, the United States is basically the last tapeworm stage, is taking all the remaining goodwill and all the GoFundMes and trying to get as much of that money of people trying to help each other survive to go straight to the billionaires that cause all the problems. So do not give any money to any of those organizations. That's another thing you got to remember. Any aid, so-called aid organization, anything that's thoroughly vetted by like an anti-imperialist, anti-colonial, anti-capitalist group of members, that's the only thing that's really capable of giving you any true information in the United States. And if there aren't like Free Palestine flags all over the front page of an aid organization, it's probably an illegitimate organization. The need to keep Hawaii for Hawaiians and not tourists is greater than ever. So this is what we're still suffering in Hawaii. I mean, the colonial water politics have left Hawaii and land of people to die. The water is all being commodified. It's horrible. We're still screwed. This is a mother who was displaced, and she was homeless while preparing for the child's birth. While homeless, it was $6,000 to $8,000 average rents, as I said. As the U.S. backs landlords above all else, So that was the Lahaina fires from last year. I have threads upon threads upon threads upon threads. If you want to learn more about this, this is Mr. Land Grabber who is land. People like this are land grabbing all of the East Coast of the United States right now to build up their golf resorts or whatever they want, their private billionaire, millionaire investment vehicles. Everything that you have is not yours, as long as, and that's also the second a disaster happens, they will come and the United States will help them take whatever land you thought you had. And that's why we were like really serious about trying to minimize the risks of a disaster here, right? And you should be too. People that are simply another thing, just moving from place to place across the United States, running away from this is not ultimately a solution, right? Millions of Americans are moving like out of Tornado Alley. They're like, I'm going to get away from the Florida or the East Coast because I want to move to North Carolina. Asheville was a climate disaster safe zone, right? But that's the wrong attitude. I'm going to go to a place where disasters don't happen and save myself. Wherever you are at, you should be, trying to restore the local environment, trying to build whatever community you can get. Planting and greening areas decreases the total carbon emissions in the world and also increases the water retention, and green attracts more green. So the more that you can restore and maintain healthy relationships environmentally and in the community, economically, etc., wherever you're at, rather than just trying to run away from your damaged area, but instead help clean up messes in the area that you're in, is long term going to be what people need to be doing, because this ultimately there is nowhere that you can really hide from these disasters. You really want to hide, you got to go to some civilized place like Russia or China, or you got to go to Vietnam, you got to go to Cuba or Iran, like a civilized country with an actual community that actually is not doing genocide, right? Go to some place that's not actively doing a real genocide. I'm not talking about what Adrian Zenz said, but like a real place. I know most Westerners can't get past that basic stuff, but as somebody who has suffered Western white genocide in Hawaii, or genocide by white people, you can't trust any place that is actively participating in a genocide. I still haven't heard any explanation for U.S. police blockades. Yeah, the U.S. also pushed us straight into fires during the Maui wildfires, so that was actively about killing Native Hawaiians. Many had no warning and no way out. Only the police barricaded Hawaiians into Lahaina, and that's why many of us died. The United States police barricaded us while it was burning. So again, if you believe that there's some moral people somewhere, I hope that I have thoroughly gotten rid of that nonsense out of your head. There's no moral leadership anywhere in the West and in the U.S. Okay, it's done. It's 2:00. Time to go. Anyway, if you appreciate this, in case you missed it at the beginning, most importantly, don't forget, you need a P100 acid and a gas, specifically chlorine gas filterable device, goggles to protect yourself from that. If you smell chlorine, if there's any kind of notification about chlorine gas plumes, if you're anywhere in that area, which it's all over the place right now, it's like all over the East Coast of the United States, we highly suggest that you get the proper filtration. Do not wait for the government to tell you that it's dangerous to breathe the air. Do not wait for the government to tell you to wear a P100 or give you one. They're probably not going to do it. You're going to get sick. You're going to die early. You're going to destroy your lungs. You're going to get the nosebleeds and catastrophic, unrepairable damage from that. You're not going to be notified by that. Right? That's the main takeaway, is you're not going to be told when this is happening. This is part. The formaldehyde is 300 times over the safe exposure limit in multiple areas. Just the formaldehyde, it's not even the chlorine gas. So the material in okay, here's the plume. Charleston. Here is so you have Atlanta, Florida, Tallahassee, all the way, and this is just like one day, one area. It is not contained to Georgia. What is this? South Carolina, parts of North possibly in the North Carolina, Alabama. I heard it had chlorine smells. So nowhere is safe, and at this point, definitely anywhere in the east of the United States. I would highly recommend. I mean, obviously, I'm not here to make. I'm not being paid to advertise. Full disclosure, I'm not being paid to advertise for P100 companies selling masks. I'm just saying, for your own ability to live and your own lungs and your own brain, heart, and organ tissue. It would be a shame if you had saved your body from COVID reinfection, mass disabling, mass killing virus, and then only for chlorine gas to destroy your brain and organs and rest of your functioning body. So yeah, just a PSA, literally a public service announcement. Yeah, like that's some more on that. Okay. If you would like to support us at the education that we try our best to do here, you can help us out by a direct support through Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/silverspook. Every donation does really help us to keep on doing this work. Hey, thanks a lot to McLovin for supporting us again. Always greatly appreciated. I think that happened during the stream. So yeah, thanks so much. I hope that life is going better for you. Then I think there were some tough times. So I hope that there were no chlorine gas clouds and minimal COVID aerosolized material in your air, among other things. And if it is, I hope that you have the ability to protect yourself from those. But also, anybody else who would like to support us, it would massively help us out. Maximum revenue, maximum dollar amounts come directly to us through Ko-Fi. There's a lease cut for companies and the payment service. If you would like to support us in an ongoing fashion, you can help us out at patreon.com/Neofeud, where you can give us ongoing support. And of course, Silver Spook games, you can get updates on what we're doing. I recently did a We Are Indie Games Heart of Neon talk about being an indie dev, what it's like, and what just regular folks like us have to go through, and we're just regular people like anyone else. I also did a video about our cyber art revolution, another indigenous cyberpunk game, indigenous made cyberpunk game, with my fellow developer Santo Alvaro Ojeda. And of course, here's some Neofeud 2. In case you want to see some more in-game Neofeud 2, this is a in-game screenshot, screen grab of the video. It is nearly done, and you can learn more of this, learn more about what we're doing here. This is some of us. Those are just regular clouds with rain in them, rain, water, maybe a bit of volcanic fog, perhaps maybe a bit of a dove flying in there, but no chlorine gas, thankfully. This is our sweet potato garden being inspected by the inspector dog. No. Help us do land back and decolonization, as well as get access to Silver Spook Discord and the Silver Spook University. Over 1,000 hours of all the content I've ever produced, categorized according to topic, when you become a patron member. Sorry, I have like so many windows open right now. My computer is slowing down. Okay, let me close some of these. My computer is getting madder and madder and madder the more windows I open. Yeah, Silver Spook University. Of course, you can also help us out at Neofeud by grabbing Neofeud, which is a cyberpunk science fictional adventure game, retro 90s style adventure game, where a cyborg social worker, a ex-con delinquent robot, and a ex-trillionaire ex-princess try to overthrow a levitating palace at Versailles full of oligarchic CEO kings and their hippie terminators, unplugged Matrix agents named Che, and Area 51 robots drinking acid out of cyberpunk looking bar stools. And there are also all kind of fun hijinks. And you can also support us, because I am the solo dev that worked on this game, doing the music, art, writing, and programming. And half the voice acting, etc. And it's also on itch.io. And if you have a second to leave even a very short review, it helps us to get the game discovered. So if you like Neofeud, don't forget to leave a positive review if you liked it. But also you can get Neofeud on itch.io for Windows and for Mac and for Linux here on the itch.io website. You can also get other games like Decolonators and Indigenous Star at Pigeon with Gun. And of course, Woman is a book by Holly, who is raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. And it is about critiquing that culture and the story of Mary within the Bible. And it is, of course, also free, or you can donate some money when you pick it up to us. Of course, you can also follow at Silverspook Games at Silverspook Games at wandering.shop, or at Silverspook Games at mastodon.social, or both on Mastodon. You can also follow on Twitter at Silverspook Guy, Silverspook Games minus Ian Silver, and we're also on Blue Sky and all over the place. You can also follow Terminus C, Terminus Cyberstar is a cyberpunk RPG that I'm the content director and lead writer for. And of course, you can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue. Holly is writer, producer, moderator here, married to myself, Lamback Free Hawaii, and of course is a haver of MECFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, and is of course masking because that's the thing we need to do to keep our communities safe. And thanks to all of our Patreon patrons, finally. Without your support, it is difficult for us to keep doing this work, so thanks so much to all of these people on this list. And yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Mick11. And until next time, keep your splash, be excellent to each other. Keep masking for that nasty miasma of biological and chemical hazards floating around in the non-free air of the tired, huddled masses. And we'll see you next time.